The Department of Justice is set to host a national conference on Tuesday on the integrated criminal justice system, where the Criminal Procedure Act will be reviewed. Academics and various stakeholders will interrogate the criminal justice system's 7-point plan, as well as the expert panel report into the July 2021 unrest. To get a bit more on the conference, we're joined by the Deputy Minister of Justice, Jeffery. Thank you very much, sir, for your time this morning. What's the big idea?
The criminal justice system is quite a key issue. There is the integrated criminal justice strategy, which was adopted, I think, in 2008. So the conference is reviewing that. But then the other key aspect is a review of the Criminal Procedure Act, which is a 1997 act. There's been a project on the go, which the South African Law Reform Commission have been running in terms of reviewing it. It was obviously passed before the Constitution, well before the Constitution, but it has been amended, but it's needing an overall review, which is something the Law Reform Commission is doing. So that's the second main leg of the conference. The conference is also 3 days, not just Tuesday. Oh, okay. So it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's then for more in-depth discussion on those issues.
Is that enough time, more so when you take a look at the Criminal Procedure Act and you speak of an overall review? There are 33 chapters. Are you going through each chapter with a fine-tooth comb, or is it specific chapters?
No. That would be more, I think, for legal drafters. This is a broader view. So there's general input in the conference. It's being opened by the Deputy President. The Minister of Police, Minister of Justice, Minister of Home Affairs will be engaging on one panel, and then there will also be breakaway groups over the 3 days looking at specific issues. Some of them are more broader. How do we modernize the criminal justice system better? There's one on transnational crime, but there's others on alternative dispute resolution, on pre-trial proceedings, and on bail proceedings, or bail issues, which is a big public issue.
Another big public issue, there's a report that was released this week that spoke about South Africa's prisons being overcrowded. And then you have the issue, sir, of, for instance, operations like Operation Shanela, which are conducted almost every week. And almost every week, thousands of people are arrested. Is this something that is also going to be taken a look at? If we've already got overcrowded prisons, are we having different ideas about how to treat certain offenses where people do not necessarily need to languish in jail, but there can be other forms of punishment or remedies?
Yes, that's already, I'm sure those issues will come up. That's already something that is addressed to some extent in our criminal justice system. I, for one, am not a believer in sending people to correctional facilities unnecessarily. There's also public pressure, for example, to increase sentences, and unhappiness when people who have committed serious crimes are released on parole or serve their sentences and are released. So the population, with the introduction of minimum sentences, which started off being introduced for rape, I think in the late 90s or early 2000s, the sentenced inmate population has been increasing. But yes, crime overall, I think, is a societal problem. And it's something that society as a whole needs to address. These people convicted of serious crimes, or any crime for that matter, have come from a particular family, with parents, with relatives, from a particular community. And the role of that community is also, and that family is also very important in how to address crime.
You speak of communities. Who are some of the stakeholders that will be in the room? Are we finding, or rather, what has been the department's assessment in terms of access and understanding of the concept of justice or the law in the Republic?
Yeah, that's quite a broad question. Firstly, the different stakeholders, there will be some community representatives, I'm not entirely sure who, but there's also civil society organizations working in the sector. The conference is relatively small, about 350 people. People were given the opportunity to apply to participate in the conference. Then it is also going to be available, the link to follow the conference is going to be available on social media of the Department of Justice from tomorrow. So there will be an ability to at least watch the proceedings. But yeah, we've generally, government has since 1994 introduced measures to include participation in criminal justice. So, for example, the advent of community police forums, which I think have played a important role in dealing with community crime. That differs from area to area. There was also provision initially, but it's more come into disfavor of having assessors in criminal matters, people from lay assessors, people from the community. A problem with that, though, is that very often it's difficult to get lay assessors because lay people don't want to sit in those cases. And then obviously also when it comes to the release of sentenced prisoners on parole, it's very important for the community to be involved in that process, and there have been some weaknesses in that in the past.
When you speak a lot of work being done to include participation in the criminal justice system, you take, for instance, cases that are being aired right now, right? So you think of maybe the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. It's been of particular interest to some sectors of the population because it's also been an introduction of the intricacies of how the law works in South Africa. And so this good work that has been done in terms of including participation in the criminal justice system, how do we measure it?
Well, I think it would be at different levels. So people can watch a trial, get some knowledge of what is happening in that trial, but their views are not necessarily particularly heard. What one's looking for at a community level is, I think, more active participation. Let's also be reminded that it's only recently that trials have been broadcast live, that you can follow them on the internet, etc. I think the first one was the Oscar Pistorius trial, and that was quite an innovation. But since then, it's been much easier for the media to apply to cover a trial. And obviously, I think it's good in that people are then able to see the workings of justice for themselves, because often there's people in communities, rape will take place and they feel they know, the community feel they know who's guilty and it was rape, and they therefore don't want the person to get bail. But maybe the circumstances are actually quite different. So what I'm saying is that public coverage of trials, I think, is important, does give people a sense of what is happening. But it's also important that we improve the active involvement of communities in criminal justice matters.
I do wonder if you are able to entertain us. This week, Pop Crew, I know it's a completely different conversation, but if you can. This week, Pop Crew, the policing union, came out to say that they're not satisfied with the pace at which the transfer of the prison where the convicted rapist and murderer escaped from in 2022 to the Department of Correctional Services, not going at a pace at which it should go. Are you privy to information in terms of what's going on there and the update?
Look, remember, I'm Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, not Correctional Services. That's my colleague, Patikile Holomisa. However, as far as I'm aware, there has been litigation by the people, G4S, who were running that prison, and although the Minister of Justice cancelled that contract,